so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
All right, welcome into our live chat tonight. It is Thursday, January 15th. We are getting ready to head to Miami, Florida tomorrow for the national championship. And we're here to take questions, comments, just talk ball. I know we haven't done this in a while, but we've been traveling, crisscrossing the country, following this team, bringing you all the stories. So as always, drop your comments on the comment thread on X and YouTube, and we'll be happy to talk about it. This is my fourth podcast of the day. I did two Miami podcasts. I did a Georgia podcast last night, and then, of course, TJ and I did ours this morning, which is out. So if you haven't listened to it, go ahead and listen to it if you're driving. We have lots of content for you guys to listen to on the way down to Miami. I don't know if there's as big of a caravan driving. It's a lot farther of a drive than Atlanta, but I know a whole bunch of people are going. So send in your comments, and we'll get underway here in just a moment. All right, we'll wait for a few more people to get in here. I know it's late. I know it's a work night, and it's Thursday. So let's set the scene for everybody. It's number 1 Indiana going against number 10 Miami for all the marbles down at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami on Monday, January 19th. Don't worry, we'll spend a lot of the offseason talking about what's wrong with the college football calendar and what we would do to fix it. But that's not what tonight's about. Tonight is about getting ready for the Hoosiers playing a national championship in football. It has been a heck of a year from game 1 to game 16 coming up. And, we'll give you a breakdown. Game 7:30 kickoff usually means 7:45 or thereabouts. It's on ESPN. They have a whole bunch of different ways to watch it. You can catch me, Don, and Buck on the radio, too, on the ESPN app. I think it's called ESPN Unlimited, but it's on ESPN streaming. I think if you have YouTube TV, you could get it for free as well on there. It is synced up to the TV, so you could, again, watch it and listen. If you don't like the ESPN announcers, listen to Fish and Buck and John Herrick on the call as well. So send in your questions. We'll get keys to the game, predictions, anything you want to know. I believe the injury report is coming out later tomorrow. This whole game being played on a Monday throws everybody off timing wise. So they come out 3 days before. 3 days before, I believe, is tomorrow. So it is expected tomorrow around 8:10. Be on the lookout. I don't think there's any injuries on IU's part. There are a couple of questions in the secondary for Miami that everybody should keep their eye on. We talked about a little bit that on the podcasts earlier today. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out. And so let's get down to it. If there are no questions, I'll just get into it. Matchups to watch, keys to the game, all that stuff, and I'll give my prediction. If there are comments, send them in. I'm happy to to answer them. We're closing in on 100 people here tonight. Hooperazzi. I'm so nervous that I stopped reading and listening to opinions. My heart can't take it much more. Yeah. All season I haven't been nervous. It's been you can't really get nervous a little bit for the opener just because you don't know, and then the rest of the games. I mean, you knew what this team was, and we knew what this team was, and then even going into the Rose Bowl and seeing how focused they were at the practices and the Peach Bowl as well. There just were no nerves. This team was not going to be out prepared or outworked, and the talent speaks for itself. You have the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, and you have a plethora of All-Americans on the defense as well. But we haven't gotten to see practice yet this week. We'll see them on Saturday in Miami. But it also that kind of unknowns. Plus, the stakes are high. If you're not nervous at all for this game, you either have no pulse or you just haven't been paying attention for football. So this is like the first week I've got those game day jitters back. It's a welcome feeling. I like it, but yeah, I get it. It's and it's a long wait till Monday. It's still tonight, Friday night, Saturday, 4 more sleeps till the game, and it seems, as a former teacher, it seems like the end of the school year, where the closer you get, the time tends to stand still a little bit. So yeah, I get you, Hooperazzi. We're right there. Like I told my wife tonight, I said, man, I'm ready to. I know we're flying out tomorrow, so I'm ready to hop in the car right now and go, and then regret that decision when we get to Louisville at midnight and go, man, we should have just flown. But yeah, the nerves are there, and I think that's true of everybody, especially in the Hoosier Huddle group text. It's this is everything. It's the last game. It's for everything. So the stakes are high, and we'll see what happens. So let's get down into the matchup a little bit, and we'll tell you how we all know how Indiana reached the championship game. Let's go through how Miami reached championship game, because they had a little bit different of a path than Indiana, and it's been kind of an interesting season going back to the opener against Notre Dame. They were in control most of the game. They were up 21-7, and then Notre Dame came back and tied the game 24-all. And it's Miami went down and kicked a field goal with like 20 seconds left. But it's a game where, Notre Dame fans are looking at, hey, it's, we only lost by 3 on the road. Freshman quarterback, we're a totally different team now, and we got snubbed. And, they could say what they want. They did get snubbed. They should have been in instead of Alabama, but we're not here to talk about it. That's ancient history. That was a month ago. But it is Notre Dame, and they love their ancient history. So Miami, they beat Notre Dame to open the season. They start the season 4-0. They start the season 5-0. They had ranked wins over South Florida, who had been coming off a win at Florida. They beat Florida the next week at home. And then they go to Florida State. And really that game should have been a blowout, and it was a blowout for a while. And then all of a sudden it's 28-22. And you're sitting going, are they going to blow this? So you don't really – has Miami played a full game yet? Probably not. Their best full game was probably South Florida. And then in comes Jeff Brom in Louisville, and they lose at home to Louisville 24-21. And it wasn't particularly close, that close either. Miami rallied. They were down 11, and they scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion with I think it was after a fumble by Louisville. And so really it should have been Shouldn't have been that close. Carson Beck throws, I think, 4 picks that game. And this is the game, if you're Indiana, you circle on, hey, this is the blueprint we got to follow. Carson Beck was 20 of 35 for 271 yards, 4 interceptions, no touchdowns. Miami did not run the ball well at all. They ran it 24 times for 63 yards. And yeah, they scored 2 touchdowns, but you look at Mark Fletcher, 8 carries, 18 yards. They threw the ball way more than they wanted to, and turned it over 4 times. Plus, they fumbled once and got it back. And let's see on the penalties, because they do have a lot of penalties. They average over 7 penalties a game, 9 penalties for 67 yards. That's not how you beat teams at all. So they lose to Louisville. You kind of go, that's probably the one loss Miami could afford to have to still make the playoff. They're kind of out of the ACC race. Then they go to Stanford and drill Stanford, and then they go to SMU and lose in overtime. Again, it was another game where turnovers and penalties played a role. Carson Beck threw 2 picks, 2 touchdowns. They had 12 penalties for 96 yards. While they did, hold the ball for 37 minutes and 42 seconds and ran for 159 yards, the mistakes are what holds this team back. And I think when you look at it and look at the matchup, you're kind of counting on Miami to make mistakes, and that's what they do. Into the playoff, in the first round, they go to Texas A&M, win a rock fight. Carson Beck was 14 of 20 for 103 yards. It's windy as heck. Fletcher with 172 yards on the ground. Miami missed 4 field goals, and they should have lost this game at Texas A&M. They could do anything on offense. They would have won this game. They couldn't run the ball. Miami limited themselves in penalties to just 4 for 30 yards. The defense won the turnover battle 3-1. So, while they missed those 3 field goals or 4 field goals, they won because of their defense. And then I think the best game they played all year was against Ohio State. And this one, everybody is circling because it is a common opponent. And the only common opponent, they win 24-14 in a game where they were up 14-0 at halftime. Ohio State comes back a little bit to make it 17-14. And then, Miami gets a 10-play, 70-yard drive to ice it with Shamar Brown, a 5-yard touchdown rush. But, Miami jumped on Notre Dame, or not on Notre Dame, on Ohio State early. They got a touchdown. Ohio State's driving down. Keontae Scott gets a 72-yard touchdown, interception return for touchdown. And basically that's all she wrote. But if you look at it, Carson Beck, 19 of 26 for 138 yards. Julian Saint kind of outplayed him yardage-wise, but threw 2 interceptions. Jeremiah Smith had 157 yards. And I think the thought process through Ohio State is like, man, if you gave us one more quarter, we were coming back and winning that game. And that might be true, but you only get 4 quarters. Miami wasn't efficient on offense, 5.3 yards per pass. They ran the ball. They ran the ball pretty well, 37 carries for 153 yards, 4.7 yards. And what they did was limit Ohio State's rushing. And this is what IU did to Ohio State really well, too. They limited their rushing yards. 45 rushing yards on 24 carries. It's 1.9 a carry. Miami forced the 2 turnovers. They got the touchdown off of it as well. And then you look at the defense for Miami. That game, you had 5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. Sounds very, very similar to how Indiana beat them. So you're going to have, that's the common point. And then you go to, and this is Miami's best game. I think if they play the way they played against Ohio State, they have a real chance at winning. However, can they put these performances, string these performances together. You go to the Fiesta Bowl, and what a Fiesta Bowl this was. Carson Beck, 23 of 37, 2 touchdowns. Miami wins 31-27. Carson Beck had a rushing touchdown with about 28 seconds left. Ole Miss has a shot at it at the end, and in no way they're calling pass interference on that play at the end of the game there to do it. But again, Miami just they kept Ole Miss in this game. They got up, 3-0, up 10-7, 17-10. Then Ole Miss starts to kind of crawl back with field goals, go up 17-19. Miami comes back, goes up 24-19. Ole Miss comes back, goes up 27-24. And then Miami with that final touchdown. But here's the story of the game. Miami, they dropped several interceptions. So Ole Miss did not turn the ball over. Miami turned it over once. They had 10 penalties for 74 yards. One of them is a targeting penalty that'll keep their starting cornerback, Xavier Lucas, out for the first half of this game, which is huge. And we'll see how big that is going to be when we talk injuries tomorrow around 8 o'clock when the initial injury report comes out. So we'll see. To me, Miami's super talented. They have the weapons. Malachi Toney is excellent. He could do everything. They're going to get him the ball. He's thrown 7 passes this year. So that's something that IU is going to have their antenna up for. But this is a flawed Miami team. They make a lot of mistakes, and we all know what happens when you make mistakes against Indiana. If Indiana plays the way they played in the postseason, including the Ohio State game, even though that was 13-10, they'll win this game. Fernando's on an absolute burner right now. 8 touchdown passes to 5 incompletions. Yeah, his yardage isn't necessarily, he's not throwing for 500 yards, but it's hard to throw for 500 yards when the defense gives you the ball back at, the opponent's 20-yard line. So feel free to send in questions so I'm not just vamping to myself all night. We've got close to 200 people in here right now. So, keep sending questions and comments in, and I'm going to take a drink, and we'll get to the key. I would say there's 5, maybe 4 or 5 keys to this game that'll make it go either way. So send in your comments, and we'll get right to it. All right, if you're joining us, welcome in. Put your comments in the comments section over here. All right, Cameron Martinez, who are you more worried about on offense, Toney or Fletcher? Man, that's a good question. Probably Toney's really good, but it is the passing game, and I think one of the keys I'm going to talk about is stopping the run, and whoever runs the ball better and whoever stops the run better will probably win this game. If Fletcher gets going, it makes it so much harder for IU to win. If Toney goes off for 100 yards and the touchdown, IU could still win, and maybe win comfortably too. But if Fletcher goes for 125 and a couple scores, that means Miami's grinding out drives, chewing up clock, and keeping IU's offense off the field and wearing down the defense. And as good as Indiana's defense has been, any defense could get worn out with the ground game. So if I'm a IU fan, I'm probably more worried about Fletcher going off than Toney going off. Not saying that I'm worried that he will go off, because I think Toney has a better chance of going off than Fletcher. But in terms of what happens, it's bad news if Fletcher goes off rather than Toney. So that's a good question. Yeah, so keep them coming. Good question, Cam, and we'll get to my first key, which I hinted at in that question, is stop the run for IU's defense and run the ball with IU's offense. I know you have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, but here's Miami's defense you could run against up the middle. Their two ends are really, really good. And in order to kind of neutralize them, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. Kalon Black and Roman Hemby, I think Kalon's he's really close to getting to 1,000 yards as well. So they'd both be over 1,000 yards for the first time since 2015 when Jordan Howard and Devine Redding did it. But if you could run the ball, get into manageable third downs, and be efficient on offense, that's how you do it. And then on defense, you got to put the ball in Beck's hands to try and make the hero play because that's what he tries to do, and he's not good at it. You go back to the 2 losses, he threw 6 interceptions. He's a guy, if things go wrong, at least when I'm watching their games, I'm not on their sideline. I don't hear what he says. When things go wrong, he tends to get flustered and angry and lash out at guys. Some guys respond well to it, some guys don't. But that's what I've seen while watching Miami games. So if you could bottle up Fletcher, and it'll be tough. He's a big dude at 6'2", 225. But Indiana has bottled up running games with better offensive lines and that stuff. So we'll see there. I do think whoever runs the ball better wins. But there are also other factors. Cameron, again, good question. I feel like I didn't see as much rotation between Benson and Johnny versus Oregon. I imagine we'll see more of that with Miami's ends. So Miami's ends aren't the speed rushers that Oregon's ends are. They're more power rushers. They're very, very good, and they're draft picks for a reason. But Khalil Benson does better against power rushers than he does against speed rushers. And yeah, he's a bigger dude. He is tough moving. But here's where, they went with the Johnny in the Rose Bowl. They went with Benson in the Peach Bowl to start. I think they have a lot of trust in a Johnny, and that gives you the option to put him out there as an extra tackle. I don't think you see what we saw in the Rose Bowl with Carter Smith being in that H-back position and working as a lead blocker. I do think that Riley Nowakowski is going to be used as a blocker a lot. He loves to put his head into people's chests. But yeah, I think they go Benson and then fill in with the Johnny if you need to, or use a Johnny as that sixth offensive line. Gridiron Hoosier, do you think they'll follow Tony with Pons or keep having Pons to the boundary and Sharp to the field? Side note, Sharp might be the most improved player on the team this season. I'm going to start with your second comment first. So I asked Brian Haynes about this after the game at the Peach Bowl because I don't think Jamari Sharp gets enough credit. He has been excellent, and everybody's focused on Pons, and deservedly so. But Jamari Sharp he's probably been the most improved. He came in, the coaching staff said he wasn't a good tackler. Now he's a really good tackler. He's really good at coverage. He's fast, and I think he's putting it all together. And I don't really want to talk about next year, but, man, he has a chance to do something special next year too. As far as following Tony with Pons, they did that with Jeremiah Smith when they played Ohio State. They kind of sick Pons on him, and they do that well. They just play Tony all over the field where maybe it's better just to go zone. And if you could get Pons on him, great. But they also have 2 other pretty good receivers where if you could negate them with Pons, that works as well. And then let Jamari and the safeties go get Tony. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do both. I would have Pons on their best receiver, which is Malachi Tony. But if he's in the backfield, that might just be hey, he's yours until he lines up in the backfield as well. And he will throw the ball. He has 7 passes this year. So they're going to get him the ball one way or another, including on punt returns. So it's going to be interesting. All right, second key to the game for me on Monday night is limiting mistakes. In IU, this is where IU I think has a clear advantage. They announced the crew, as long as you believe the guy on Twitter. I think it's Ref Observer, and he does it for like a living. It is a Big Ten crew, and Michael Vandervelde is the white hat. I love it. I love that it's a Big 12 crew. It's not going to be a Big 10 or ACC crew because the 2 teams are playing, and I'm glad it's not an SEC crew because they were absolutely horrendous on Friday night in the Peach Bowl, like horrendous in the second half. You probably had better referees at IU Rec Sports flag football than the crew that they ran out during the second half of the Peach Bowl, which it still makes me mad that that wasn't pass interference, that Pat Coogan's helmet gets ripped off and there's no penalty, and they stole a 70-yard run from Kalon Black because there was no holding on that play. So, it's whoever makes the fewest mistakes, and that's the old Bob Knight line, right? Fortune favors those who make the fewest mistakes. IU doesn't really turn the ball over. They lead the nation in turnover margin. Miami turns it over. They get these dumb penalties. And to me, it goes a little bit further into that as well in terms of like taking timeouts. I think Kurt Cignetti has been excellent at knowing when to take his timeouts, especially in the first half when he kind of uses them like a basketball coach. You saw it against Alabama. He took the timeout on the punt. On their fake punt. He took the timeout when they were down in the red zone and the helmets weren't working. And then last week against Oregon, on Oregon's first drive, I think it's like play 9, 10, or 11. They get down in the red zone. He calls the timeout, gets the defense rested up. The first play is a tackle for loss. Yeah, they end up scoring, but he uses those timeouts in the first half like a basketball coach uses their timeouts. What you don't want to do is get stuck in the second half, stuck with no timeouts when you need them, especially late in the game. Have to burn a timeout because the play clock's running down, or you can't get into alignment and things like that. Those are the mistakes that sometimes Miami makes. They are 80th in the nation at 7 penalties per game. Those kill you, especially if they're of the holding variety on offense. Getting Miami into 3rd and long should be the number 1 goal for the defense. And that's huge. So that's 2 of my 4 keys to the game. We've got over 300 people in here now. So if you're joining us, welcome. Thanks for listening. And I hope we're all excited for Monday night. And hopefully everybody can go into work a little late on Monday night to enjoy the game. If not, hopefully your place of work or your school has good caffeine options. So if you have a question or comment, drop it in the comments. It'll show up on stage as well, and we'll get to it. So I'm going to take a quick drink, and then we'll get back to the final 2 keys of the game, and I'll give my score prediction. We could get out of here and, get ready for Monday night. Is anybody going down to Miami that's on here? I know a handful of our followers on X and on the forums are going. So if you are, let us know. We'll try and find you. I know a ton of people were down in Atlanta. And it was, that crowd was like 95% IU fans, which is insane. So final 2 keys of the game. I think it goes hand in hand with the other ones. You got to protect Fernando Mendoza, and you got to heat up Carson Beck. This Miami defensive line is really good with Ruben Bain, and the tickets are really expensive, like really expensive. I didn't even apply for them through IU just because when I did for the Peach and Rose Bowl, reselling them, it wasn't great. I barely made my money back, but I did. But yeah, keeping Fernando Mendoza upright is huge. He's been so good this year at escaping pressure and throwing and not letting pressure really affect him the entire game. Yeah, there have been drives where he's taken a hit and it kind of blows up the drive. But he's also not letting it affect the rest of the game where he has those happy feet that he had at Cal or that he had in the opener, and things like that. And then on the flip side, if the defense could get the Carson back, he is horrendous under pressure. They don't get a lot of pressure on him, opposing defense, but when they do, he does not handle it well, and that's when you turn him over and get the ball back on defense and turn those into mistakes. So, it all comes down to this is with the running game mistakes, protecting the quarterback. It's a line of scrimmage game. This is kind of like an old school Big Ten game in that way. We'll see how open the offenses go. But yeah, it's whoever wins up front is more than likely going to come away with it. So my final key to the game, and Signetti said this earlier in the week, is don't make this moment bigger than it is. And I think having played the Rose Bowl, having played in the Peach Bowl, it kind of gives you the national championship's on another level of those games, but it kind of gives you played in these postseason environments. Halftime's a little longer. There's all the pomp and circumstance of pregame festivities, a flyover, and all that stuff that you don't really get in the regular season. They've already dealt with that twice this year, or 3 times if you include the Big Ten title game. And you kind of get used to it. The schedule's a little funky with it being 10 days instead of a regular week, but they've worked with their funky schedule now for 3 games. So I think that those nerves kind of go out the window of, oh, this is something a little bit different. Well, no, yes, it is different, but no, we've done different for the last 3 weeks. Indiana does a very good job of treating everything the same. Although we haven't seen practice this week, I assume that it's been like all the other practices that we've been to in the postseason, where it's all business. One thing I noticed this postseason, these teams aren't doing those trips to like Disneyland or SeaWorld or whatever else they do, or the aquarium in Georgia, whatever they do at the Peach Bowl, whatever you do in Miami. It doesn't seem like they have that. So we'll see. But don't get caught up in the moment. It's the mantra of SIG is one play at a time. Each play has a life of its own. Each play is 6 seconds long. Once that play is over, we're moving on to the next play. And when the game's over, then you can enjoy the moment. And that's what they've done, the last 3 times they've had on-field celebrations. Yeah, Beck is very erratic. Why stop at 5? Hopefully it's 6 or 7. Although if he throws 6 or 7 interceptions, he might not be in the game to throw 6 or 7 interceptions. But we'll see. Another topic that people brought up on all the podcasts I've done today is the home field advantage for Miami. Crowd-wise, I don't think it's going to be that big of a home field advantage. One, Hard Rock Stadium's kind of small. I think it's 65,000, something around there, 65,000 and change. It's smaller than Kinnick. It's just slightly larger than Memorial Stadium. So it's not like you're going to have 100,000 people yelling at you. Smaller than the Rose Bowl, smaller than the Peach Bowl at Mercedes-Benz. And I think IU fans are going to show out. Each team got 20,000 tickets, according to the information I have. Each team got 20,000 tickets. They've sold out their allotment. That leaves about 25,000 up in the air, and I do think IU fans have gobbled some of those up. So it could be a 50-50 crowd, it could be a 60-40 crowd either way, but where the home field advantage I think comes in for Miami is that you're practicing in your facilities all week. You're staying at your normal home hotel. Um, I think Miami gets their usual locker room, but I don't know if that's the same locker room as like the Dolphins. So a lot of these NFL stadiums have 4 sets of locker rooms, especially shared stadium. I know like at MetLife for the Jets and Giants, the Jets and the Giants each have their own home locker room. So maybe they both get the home locker room. One gets the Dolphins, one gets Miami's. But it's you get to stay at the hotel that you normally stay at. You get to stay in your own bed. Routines stay the same. You don't have to travel on an airplane and stuff like that. And there's some other that might be an advantage. But hey, Miami's played one more game than IU in the playoff as well. So from Gridiron Hoosier, I think with Miami having to really good tackles, Bones and Hardy will have a big game stopping the run and getting after back. Yeah, where they're weak on the line is up the middle in their center. And we've said this before. That's like where Tyreek Tucker lives, and he's like a fire hydrant. I think that's where you're going to attack is over the center. IU's defensive line does a very good job of occupying block and making 2 or 3 defensive line or offensive linemen block one defensive lineman while 2 other guys run free. It is, I think, I don't know if people took it as an insult, but I thought Dan Lanning's description of IU's defense was spot on as an illusion defense. They'll show something, but it's not really there. And that's what simulated pressure is. There are some really good breakdowns on YouTube with T-Cal and Buffed and Prime and some other guys whose names escape me right now, where they'll break it down for you, where IU has 5 guys at the line of scrimmage with 3 linemen and 2 linebackers, and they'll drop a lineman and a linebacker, and all of a sudden the offensive line is confused, and 3 of them are blocking a defensive end while Aiden Fisher and Mario Landino are running free. So they might have – look, the offensive line is always going to outweigh the defensive line. That's just how football works. But you could counter the size with speed, and that's what IU does well. You have Mikhail Kamara's coming off his best game to date of the year against Oregon. He should be fully healthy, ready to go from what I've heard. And he was putting Oregon's offensive line is good too, and he was putting those guys in the dirt on spin moves. Just because you're big and strong doesn't mean you could necessarily block the speedy guys. And IU's defensive linemen are strong too, but we'll see. It's Devin Boykin can also rush the passer, and I think we don't talk about him enough. I thought he should have won the defensive MVP of the Rose Bowl. I think he had 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He's a guy that they designed blitzes for that are tough to stop, and he's quick enough to shoot in there before anybody can really get over and block him. He's good in pass defense. I think he's a key player in this game. So we'll see there. I think so. I mean, I go off of what we saw out of Benson in the first Oregon game, and going into from that stretch before the bye week, where he really could not move at Oregon, and really had trouble moving. And going into the Maryland game too, he had trouble moving, and he deserves credit for toughing it out and playing through it. But he's moving so much better now that he's had time off and time to heal. Is he 100%? I don't know. Nobody's really 100% these days in college football, 16 games into the year. he's probably as good as he's going to be after playing 16 games. And that's where these, having 10 days off between the Peach Bowl and this game and having the bye week, because rust is no longer an issue. Now, this is where the rest part of it comes into play. While Miami was playing a physical game against Texas A&M, IU was at home recovering and, doing those kind of workouts and that kind of work to get their bodies right for this game. So this is where you see the buys pay off is 2 or 3 weeks down the road. But he's moving better. He is. Did he let up a few pressures against Oregon? Yeah, but so does everybody. But he's moving better, and I think the time that they trusted Johnny to go out there as well. So if he isn't better, they're going to throw a Johnny out there. Because he used that time to get developed, and that's what IU does. So, yeah, thanks, James, for the question. So we'll go a little bit longer here. If you still have questions, we'll comment. We're close to 400 people. That's almost like $1 million in national championship tickets right there, right? Although my math's off, it's more like 50,000. It's late, so brain doesn't really work anymore. Score predictions. Should we get into score predictions? Yeah, let's get into score predictions, and then we'll close it out with some final questions as they get sent in. Score prediction for Monday night. I said on the Georgia pod, I said 24-21 IU. On the 2 Miami pods and the pod I did with TJ today, I tweaked it a little bit. I said 27-24 IU. I do think both offenses are good enough to score on these defenses. What kind of hesitated me to go on a lower score was that usually in these championship games, there's a feeling out period where, the teams take the first drive or two to kind of see what's going on. I could be totally off on it, and this could be like a 56-35 game. But I do think IU wins based on Miami hasn't put 2 great games together all year. They played their best. If they play like they did against Ohio State, they're going to be in it till the end and quite possibly can win it. If they play like they did against Ole Miss, against SMU, against Louisville, against Florida State, even against Notre Dame, where they won and they beat Florida State too, but they had those big mistakes and they couldn't put teams away. And you can't do it with this IU team. You just can't do that. You saw Oregon last week after the pick 6 when they went down for touchdown. People were thinking, man, this is, I thought it was going to be a shootout after that. Now, when IU's offense went down and scored again, I go, okay, IU's pretty much in control, and then the turnovers happen. Oregon fumbles twice. You give up a big punt return to Jonathan Brady. All their mistakes compounded and turned into the avalanche, and that IU avalanche comes quick, and it has come in almost every game. And IU's done a great job at that middle 8 all year. It won them the Ohio State game. Was not. It was more like the middle 6 than the middle 8. IU gets a field goal to cut the lead to 10-6. Ohio State gets the ball with like 2.5, 3 minutes left in the first half. They get the ball coming out of halftime. IU kept them off the board. So yeah, it's again, I the way this IU team is playing, it leads. They have given no signs that they won't show up and won't play well. They've given no signs that all of a sudden they're going to start making the mistakes that they haven't made all year. Has Fernando thrown some big interceptions? Yes. he really hasn't thrown them in the last few games, but he has in some of the bigger games. Oregon, Iowa, Penn State. He threw picks, but he's also rebounded so well from them. After each of those picks, he's led them on game-winning touchdown drives. So, yeah, if Indiana plays the way that they've been playing in the playoff, they're going to win this game going away. If they play slightly under that performance and Miami plays like they played against Ohio State, can Miami win? Yes. But I do think this is going to be a hold on to your heart medicine game or whatever you take to relax. So I'll take IU 27, Miami 24. So any final comments before we get out of here? Going once, going twice. We'll put the show up on YouTube and on Spotify to give people something to listen to between now and Monday to get ready for the game as well. Yeah, it's our last football. Well, not really. We'll talk spring ball. We'll talk transfer portal. But yeah, it's one last go around with this group. So let's make it count. I appreciate all you guys coming in. We have 424 people in here right now. Appreciate you all tuning in and listening and all that stuff. So, awesome. Awesome, James. That's right. Yeah, I remember people were we had Penn State game, we had playoffs going on and all that stuff. So yeah, that'll do it for tonight's show. If you have questions, reach out on X and in the forums as well. You go to HoosierHuddle.com. We do have 3 levels of subscription, free option, $30 for the year, $3 a month if you just want to finish out January with us, and then we'll have everything leading into spring ball and transfer portal and recruiting and men's hoops, women's hoops, baseball, softball coming up as well. So one last run, 7:30. Really 7:45 kickoff, 7:30 Monday night, ESPN. If you want to listen to Fish on and sync it up with the TV, there's multiple ways to do that. There's Sync My Call through Learfield. There's the Varsity app on your phones that's free that you can listen to the game. And then if you want to give the Mouse some money or use their app, the Hometown Radio Call is on streaming on there. So I'll post how to get it exactly, but plenty of options to hear Don and Buck and John go through something historic. So safe travels to those going down to Miami. If you're staying in Indiana, we have a list of watch parties in the forum as well, all throughout the state, both IU Alumni Association. If you know of a watch party and it's not on that list, feel free to drop it in there. And then if you're in Bloomington, enjoy yourself. Heartwork is having a watch party as well. There's some, at this point, I would leave the bars on Kirkwood to the younger folk, but I know upstairs, our friends at upstairs are holding one, and Buffalo's and Carmel and all that stuff. So lots of places to watch the game. Take it in, enjoy it. We don't know when this opportunity will come again, right? And enjoy it. We'll talk soon, and I'll be down in Florida tomorrow, bringing Media Day stuff on Saturday, and we'll have all the pregame stuff on Monday as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great night.